The Maximum Happiness and Wellbeing course, Part 1, Session 9, Perception and Thoughts. Introducing the perception cycle, a transformative tool to improve the quality of your beliefs and thoughts, to increase the levels of happiness that you enjoy. Discover the power behind your thoughts and how they attract positive and negative circumstances and people that affect your happiness. The session starts with a short exercise, a visual exercise, a picture of what appears to be an old woman, and it asks the question, what do you see? Is the world really as you see it? Do you see a lovely young lady or a shriveled old woman? In the picture, the ear of the young lady is actually the eye of the old woman, and the reversible figure illustrates how we can be given subtle clues which influence what we see. We tend to believe that our perception or experience of the world is reliable. Seeing is believing, but we may not be the objective observers that we think we are. Our perceptions reflect our needs, expectations, attitudes, values and beliefs. We see what we believe. Research shows that rather than passively recording details, we actively process incoming stimulation, focusing on some aspects, ignoring others. And so it is with your perception, beliefs and thoughts. It's a useful little exercise to start the session, whether you can identify from the picture whether it's an old lady, a haggard old lady, or a beautiful young girl. We'll move now on to the perception cycle. This is a session that I'm particularly excited to present as it contains a powerful transformative thought process. During the years of my research into the science of happiness, I came across different variants of this thought process, and it enabled me to transform negative situations into more satisfactory outcomes. I was so impressed with the principle that I created a process for myself, which I call the perception cycle. When I applied this process to my life and my thoughts and circumstances, I experienced so many positive outcomes that I quickly learned this was no coincidence. The process had become part of my natural and instinctive thinking process, and it's helped me through many traumatic times and to overcome more challenges and obstacles than I've been able to count. If I were asked, what's the most valuable lesson learned from your research into the science of happiness that you've applied successfully with multiple positive outcomes, the answer is simply the perception cycle. As I prepared the material for the Maximum Happiness course of books and videos, it became abundantly clear that this simple process, this simple transformative thought process was relevant to every aspect of happiness. So I'm delighted to be able to share the perception cycle with you. I hope it brings you as much positivity and happiness as you would want. You'll see from the diagrams contained within the course notes a diagram of the perception cycle, and the way it looks, you can see that there are it's like a pie chart containing 6 pieces of the pie, and they revolve in a clockwise direction, starting with your perceptions. Now this can be your perceptions about anything, whether it's a person, whether it's a set of circumstances, whether it's a problem that you currently face. You have perceptions about that particular thing, whether it's a person or circumstances. Those perceptions create the thoughts that you have. The thoughts ruminate in your mind based on the perceptions that you've created, and those thoughts materialize, internalize and create our emotional feelings. Those emotions lead to the views that we might take on that particular subject or that person. Our views lead to the actions that we'll end up taking, and the actions we take create the results that we get. So the summary is, if unhappy with the results that we're getting, we should consider changing our perceptions at the outset about that person or circumstances. This might require empathy, it might require a complete change of perspective about the circumstances, but just by trying to change those perceptions can change the overall outcomes that you ultimately receive, and turns a negative output or a negative outcome into a positive outcome. We can transpose new, more constructive beliefs for old, outdated, non-serving beliefs in any area. So this is where you can use this particular tool to replace the negative beliefs that we were talking about in the previous sessions, and even any area, values and things like that we wanted to look at. We can look at the current values and say to ourselves, well, am I really living in congruence with that value, or am I not? You can look at anything, any set of circumstances with this tool, and change the outcomes for a happier one. The process isn't limited to specific areas. It can be applied to happiness, authenticity, your needs, beliefs, values, your level of self-esteem, your roles, your awareness, appreciation, acceptance, your beliefs about any subject, event or person. Whatever you choose to think about, you can substitute a negative belief for a more positive, constructive one to create a different cycle of events and to achieve happier results. Don't just take my word for it. Experience the transformative power of replacing a destructive belief with a more positive one, and feel the positive emotional energy it brings. From all the research into the science of happiness, the most significant discovery that I made was the perception or beliefs that we allow to reside in our minds dramatically affect whether we are happy or unhappy. Person, event, set of circumstances, the degree of happiness or unhappiness we experience depends largely upon the perceptions that we formed about that subject. This particular tool has become so useful and so well received that so many people that I know have taken this diagram and pinned it to their wall so it's there permanently. I had it there permanently for years before I knew it internally, and I use it on a daily basis even now, to change my perceptions about circumstances or events or people, so that I can have a more positive outcome. Try it. It only works. So this session concludes then with transformational exercise number 8, experimenting with your perceptions using the perception cycle. Remember, the perceptions we have about a person or event feed the thoughts that we have about them or it. The thoughts we have create the emotions in our mind. The emotions are powerful. Left unchecked, they forge our views of the person or the event. Our views invariably lead to our actions, with positive or negative consequences and outcomes. The actions that we take create the results that we get, the outcomes. So if we're unhappy with the results that we're getting, change your perceptions. Watch the results change with it. Think of a person or event that's causing you stress or anxiety. With empathy and sympathy, replace your current perception with an alternative. Put yourself in the other person's shoes to recreate their view. You can also do this to affirm your perception is correct in the first place.